Welcome our next TED-like talk speaker.
Thanks everybody for coming by after lunch. It's a post-lunch session, I know, but thankfully we are here with some daylight, so it won't make things sleepy as in the other room. So thanks for showing up. The topic, I hope it's going to be interesting for most of you, because experience design is something we've been talking about as a common capability across all the design disciplines, and it's sort of is the mature part of the practice. But how do we use experience design as a strategic capability? So I'm going to share with you some examples. So the structure of my presentation is going to be sharing my learnings, some of the key gaps that I've identified in the industry between the demand side, which is changing quite rapidly, and the supply side, which is the design community, design education institutes and design industry, whether that gap can be filled and how we can fill it through a framework that I'm going to introduce. So that's broadly the structure of my presentation. Phillips, why I say that? Because I spent more than 22 years in the company across 4 different locations. And what I'm going to say today is based on a body of work which is represented here on this slide. You can see examples from product design to environment design to consulting, as well as integration of technology into physical spaces. So I've been fortunate enough to do this over 4 continents, from US to Europe. My recent experience has been in Singapore for the last 8 years, and now I'm here. I've been fortunate that my projects have been implemented in more than 17 countries. So that also means there's an exposure to different cultures and different sort of interactions from the leaders of all these countries. So if you are a designer wanting to connect with the marketplace or connect to the audience, you may have a customer, your customer may have a customer, and their customers may have the ultimate users. So it's a range of layers of your audiences that you need to experience to really understand how your creation reaches out to the end users. So that's a little bit of that. I'm going to focus on 3 of these projects as representative, and all of them happen to be in Asia, so that also sort of helps. First interesting project that we did a few years ago was in Laos, now one of the least developed countries in Asia, with very little medical design or very little availability of medical technologies. And this was just after the pandemic broke, where the country like Laos had already a demand for new technologies, and there was no supply as such. Companies like my company was not really interested because it's a small market and you cannot really serve it. But we as a design team took the initiative and said, okay, let's do something about it. Let's rethink the whole idea of building hospitals or supplying technology. So we decided to put it in a box. So this is what we did. We actually sourced CT scanners from one country. We created we took a shipping container because there was an excess shipping containers in those days because the world had stopped trading, right? So we put these 2 things together, and this is how it became. What happened then is, it was responding to a need of the hour, but we made sure that the product design, the attention paid to the detail, everything comes together as one thing. So you will see product, you will see technology, you will see physical space. There's a whole workflow understanding that goes into this. And you really start to productize physical spaces. So that was our first attempt to ship out something that is not there. Now, if you see the customer, they're happy, obviously, because they got something that they had never imagined. But within the company, you don't have much support because this is a new thing, there's no market, you can't scale it. So it's up to the design team to really go end to end. It's a concept, it's the creation, it's the fabrication, it's the installation, it's the hand-holding of everything in the middle. And that's how you expand the demand for design, or the role of design, which is not just conceptualizing, but really going end to end. So this is the first example where I'm showing how the demand for design is becoming more end to end. The second example is from Singapore, and this is really interesting because this is a governmental initiative to look at the healthcare landscape within the country. And Singapore has as a way to engage designers through even in the governmental activities. So what we did was we looked at the problem statement was about nursing homes, the nursing home care in Singapore, and giving them a nationwide structure and a workflow. The problem statement was obviously because of population getting aged, care becoming more complex, the manpower is too short, etc. So what we did was we actually spent hours in understanding this landscape, really design teams spending days and nights in nursing homes of Singapore trying to absorb the physical context. Context is becoming extremely important going forwards. Every designer will be quite well equipped when it comes to data, but it's the immersion into the real context of the problem makes you a better designer, more empathetic, and your solutions are going to be much, much more relevant to the audience. So we did this classic way, 2,000 man-hours and 62 interviews conducted all through the COVID times. More importantly, what we learned is that as the problem statements become more complex, your engagement with your clients should become more frequent and deep. And that's the representation here. We invited end users, the doctors, the nurses, the ground staff, the janitors, all the way to the CEOs of these hospitals to come and participate in the creative process. Not easy at all, because you're dealing with non-designers, getting them involved into the design process. But then again, wearing your design hat, you invent things, you create new tools, you create movements like this where you can really make them part of the solution. So our recommendation was twofold. One was to meet the brief. We had won the design tender, so we are meeting a brief. The box is ticked. But as a responsible design team, you want to do more. You can see the future of what you're proposing. And therefore, we went one step further and also proposed a disruptive innovation, where we said that it's not enough to change technology or adopt new processes. It's about rethinking the complete model of care in Singapore. So we took that decision and proposed a solution narrative that went all the way up into the healthcare ministry. So now we are sort of hoping that they absorb it and they do something with it at a strategic level. So the demand is how much you can stretch it. It's about the complexity that is put forward, and as a designer or as a design team, you can go one step further and elaborate further on the future of your solution, and that's what we did here. The third and the last example is from China, which is a project that I'm working on as of now. It started last year. It's a greenfield hospital design project, but this is a unique problem because the hospital in China, they're building a brand new cardiology center, 500-bed hospital for heart patients, which is quite unique. And obviously, they employed multiple design agencies. They employed architects, they employed landscape designers, they employed interior designers. But guess what? All these agencies are working in isolation. And the CEO or the commissioner of this project soon realized that having multiple design agencies is not really the answer, because if they don't talk to each other, if there's no common thread that binds their stories or their creation together, it's going to be just another piece of ordinary architecture or ordinary solution. So they wanted somebody to actually bring this all together. And this is an example of what happens when you have multiple good design agencies, but the end product can be a hodgepodge of creation. That's the way. So as a strategic design group, what we did was we took 2 steps back and we said, how can we capture the vision of this project into a few principles? Those principles can be then translated into individual design stories. So we created diagrams like this where we take principles like, for example, transparency as a principle. Now you can apply this principle into physical space, how to make spaces transparent. You can make your processes transparent. You can make your communications transparent. And we gave these principles to the CEO and said, now you go and brief your agencies to follow these principles. And we hope that end of the day, you will get a product or you will get a campus that stays for next 10, 20, 30 years, and that sort of is based on very solid foundational principles. So recapping the learnings of these 3, right? So the demand side is becoming complex. It's really demanding for a multidisciplinary approach. It's asking you to look at the business case of what you're designing. It also requires intensive insight work, and the data collection part of it is also becoming very, very intense. The concept is not good enough if it cannot be scaled. So you have to think about scalable concepts. We also had a moment in our project journey where we had to explain our concepts to the business leaders and basically show them the value of design. Now, value of design is a big topic. It's very difficult to address because a lot of things that we do are very subjective, and the decisions that business leaders have to make are objective, and you have to marry those two things together. So we had to invent methodology where your subjective creative design decisions can be translated into business decisions objectively. So that's where value-based narratives come into play. And the last example demanded us to orchestrate many design agencies, which is a new capability. As you grow into the organization from being a designer to a consultant to a leader, you start to orchestrate. You orchestrate different designers from different disciplines, but as you go out, you're also orchestrating non-design teams and engineering teams and developing teams. So that orchestration is a very good capability to have going forwards. Now the question is the design community ready for this new reality? Is the industry ready? There are still some gaps. So I will say that if you are a design team that is in the survival mode, you have a very low appetite for risk, which means you will do safe projects, you will deliver on the brief, and you will move on to the next project. Where is the room for experimentation, and where is the room for failures? That's not there. Scaling is a big issue because you guys are from software industry, you know how to scale pretty fast because it's virtual. In the physical world, it's extremely hard to scale your solution unless you apply industrial design thinking to every solution that you create. So that's a gap. Harmony is a gap. Architects not talking to landscape designers, not talking to interior designers is a problem. What's happening in the design schools? I know India, our country, is full of design schools, right? But some of these are common challenges that the design schools are facing. One of them is identity dilemma. Every design school is going to think about where am I coming from? Am I a design school that is coming out of an engineering program or from an art school or from a digital program? You have to have a root and then you will have an identity. So identity is an issue. We have also seen that if you want to create designers of the future, a program of 4 years is very short. In 4 years, you're barely scratching the surface of design. I've been speaking to many design schools on this, and they all agree that it's a challenge, especially to prepare designers of the future. Credibility is an issue as well. Well, designers themselves, like if you lock yourself into a title, it's going to be a challenge for the future. If you say, I'm a graphic designer and all I do is graphic design, well, good luck. Future will demand you to step from one field of design to the other and to the other, and you will have to have that level of comfort moving from one to the other. So to meet this demand side and the supply side, what we are proposing and what we have been thinking about is a new foundation, which is a new common foundation that can inform the design functions, the design careers, as well as design education systems. So can we rethink this whole idea of design in something else? For a want of better name, I'm just calling it strategic experience design because it has an element of strategy, it has an element of experience, and design has been our background. So putting this all together, can we look at a framework that allows us to really connect with the three aspects of design. One is the emotional aspect or the creative aspect that we all come to design program for. The other aspect is the intellectual or the mental aspect. And the third aspect is action. A lot of designers and design teams stay on the creative side and the intellectual side, but if there's no action, then there's no value created. So can we look at a model where we make it purpose-driven, so as opposed to project-driven? Can we look at something that is omni-creative, so not just creative in the sense of your specialty, but an omni-creation, multi-specialty? And can we look at something that has systematic or systemic element into it? So if we look at these three as foundations of a new design profession or new design education, it can give us a lot of substance and a lot of power going into the future. And if we just add to this, in terms of what does it mean? So if you look at purpose-driven design, it's really about addressing complex challenges. The future is about not designing a logo, not designing a piece of car, a piece of automobile. It's about solving complex challenges for your customers. So that's going to be a big shift. To be able to reciprocate your business strategy is very important part of this. Now, creativity has a lot to do with empathy, and it has to do with understanding the vibe of your audience. But it also has to do with building a culture of possibilities. Because if you're a design house within the company, you are really a powerhouse of creation and possibilities, right? That has to be maintained going forwards. And very important that everything that we do and propose has to have an ecosystem thinking behind it, whether it's physical infrastructure, whether it is digital infrastructure. Every designer will have to think in terms of total ecosystem and not one or two touch points. That is very important. Last but not the least, balancing the scale of your solution with ecology and the impact that you're going to create on the planet. Now, I know this point comes always in the end, but more and more companies are putting this point as the first point, as a priority point. So a design educator or a design team has to look at the ecology and the impact on planet very, very seriously going forwards. You can name it. So in your mix, if you're putting a design team together or design capability together in the company, each of these capabilities is represented by one title, if you want to give a title. You have a researcher, you have a design partner, you have consultants, or you have a sustainability champ, creative leads, etc. So this is a model which allows you to create a multidisciplinary practice, but you can also grow in terms of careers and titles and everything around it. Now, what does it mean for education? Now, in education, you are actually looking at the core capability. So in order to build a culture of possibilities, you actually have to cultivate imagination. And you can draw a lot of inspiration from, sorry, I'm jumping back. So you can draw a lot of inspiration from the schools that are around the design school. So if you're in a university, this is a great opportunity to make design education multidisciplinary. And you can borrow so many things from School of Humanities, from School of Business, from School of Policy, from School of Economics, and from the School of Technology. So it's the same framework that allows you to borrow capabilities and create overlaps between the design school and schools of business. For example, the business strategy is all about value. It's all about exchange of value. So why can't a design department work with the business school and create a module or create a program that talks about exchange of value? Why don't we work with policy school and talk about alliances and forming joint collaborations? Same with the technology school and creation of digital ecosystems, etc. So this model allows you to overlap and create that interdisciplinary solutioning. So what does it mean in terms of a design career? And this is my last slide. So what does it mean in terms of a design career? In past, you had a singular career. I'm an architect, I'm an industrial designer, I'm a graphic designer, and that's what I do. I can get better and better, or I can become senior and senior in the same field. But going forwards, what I'm proposing here is every designer should go through this new foundational training or foundational experience within the company that gets them into an interdisciplinary thinking. It allows them to tackle more complex challenges in the world. It allows them to experience the business side of things. It also enables them to converse in terms of different kind of creative professions. It equips them with ability to orchestrate beyond their own field. And if you have gone through this experience of learning in the school, or maybe your initial 5 or 6 years of working in an interdisciplinary environment, it prepares you for a more matured career. And you may choose to continue designing, But a lot of designers would like to become entrepreneurs. A lot of them would like to focus on the research side of things. Some of them want to go into the policy making because that's where the biggest impact is going to be. And some want to be incubators, some want to host incubation processes. But instead of jumping into those professions involuntarily or out of nowhere, at least you have a foundation that is still rooted into design practices. So that's just my 2 cents on the topic of strategic design. And this is really, again, a pathway for a designer to host the core capabilities, groom them in a multidisciplinary setting, and then branch out into whichever career path you can choose. So thank you very much.
Hello, yes. Are there any questions you would like to ask? Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
So I thoroughly enjoyed the talk that you made. Actually, I'm an architect, and I can't say that I've shifted into UX, more like a transition into it, I suppose. I found that shipping container with the MRI machine very interesting. Maybe it's going into too much detail about the project, but when you looked at the shipping container, did you think of it as a temporary setup or a permanent one?
It was a semi-temporary setup. So the idea was that you serve a market that has a need, and as soon as they get a more permanent setup, you move on to the next market. So the same shipping container can be further transported into another region. It can be refurbished. So it's a mobile solution, actually.
Okay, but the MRI machine itself is permanent, so...
No, it's part of the box. So the whole box gets shipped.
Oh, it's still inside the
Yes.
box. Okay, very interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll take another question. Another question? One. Oh, God. Sorry for that. One last question.
Yeah, hi. This is Rita here from Accenture. I do have 2 questions. One probably is short, second would be a little lengthy. So I would need your help to kind of define strategic capabilities in single word, probably. And second question that I do have is probably I do lead a team, right? So I do face a challenge in probably grooming or training the designers who are hardcore designers, UX designers or UI designers, how to train them to think beyond design, right? To think towards the strategy more than just the design or the UX resource that they are doing. So that's the biggest challenge that me and my team are basically facing, not only me, beyond, I think maximum of them would be facing. So I need little bit your guidance over there.
Yeah, that's a great question because it's not an easy switch. Strategy is a big word. A lot of designers will stay away from it because they might perceive it as something for business, not for me kind of a thing. But it's about, if you're a leader, it's about creating those conversations and opening up the principles of why you are doing what you're doing. So if you have provided a design brief to a designer, it's your job to explain the rationale behind that design problem itself and make the space for the designer to even question the rationale and help them understand what's behind the problem statement. You know the 5 why methodology, right? So if you ask those 5 whys together with the designer, I think you will start to create a culture of understanding the problem statement in a much more visionary way or a strategic way without labeling it strategy. And once that happens, your designers are going to be much more matured in thinking, and also that maturity is going to reflect in their design solution. So that's really the core of it. And it's a matter of daily practice. So you don't send designers to a strategy course and expect them to adopt strategic thinking. It's a matter of daily practice. It's a matter of creating a culture of conversations and giving them the space to think beyond their projects. So it's very natural that the designers move from one project to the other and to the other because time is ticking and time is money. But if you're a leader and if you create those spaces where they can also think beyond, I think that's the key. Well, if you want to connect with me, my information is available on the QR code. So thank you very much for listening. Hope you have a great day.